and welcome back to another episode of the Vale Unfiltered podcast. A very special one. I think it might be the first one of the year. And what a podcast and what a guest to start it off with. Ben, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, buddy. Thank you for having me on, and happy to talk some football with you.
Pleasure is all ours. It's just going to be a bit of a chilled episode, because that's what we are. And obviously, fan-led, there's literally nothing corporate about this whatsoever. We literally say whatever we want. We get stick for it. We deal with it. Move on.
I really do, but
Yeah, it's just how
just
it,
stating facts.
it's
But
just how it
it's
is.
how it is.
But yeah, just thought we could talk about you. Obviously, we'll have a bit of a talk about Fleetwood. We know that you've got a little bit of a soft spot for Port Vale, so we'll sort of go into that. Just have a nice episode to start off the year. It shouldn't have taken this long, but we've been putting it off. I don't know why, but we have.
Maybe me being ill, that's the main one.
Yeah, everyone's ill at the minute, but
Because I've got a crap immune system.
but we are here now. So, introduce yourself properly, Ben. Like, what do you do? Who are you? Get yourself out there.
Yeah, I'm a Fleetwood fan. I do mainly EFL content now these days. So I kind of cover League One, League Two, bits of the Championship, but mainly League One and League Two. I ran a League One podcast for a few years. Fleetwood were in League One, got relegated to League Two. Stayed with the League One podcast and actually probably enjoy it a little bit more now Fleetwood are not in it, because I can just talk about it in a different way and have a different perspective of it maybe a little bit. I do that with my best mate Jake Tong, who supports Lincoln. I do the matchday vlogs, which aren't my main source anymore. I kind of phased them out a little bit over the last 12 to 18 months, but still do a little bit in terms of that. Moving to the commentary side of it a little bit more. And then I do like videos on League One and League Two, like top tens or predictions and stuff. So yeah, I try and filter my content around what's happening in the world of football, really, mate.
Well, I have got to say myself, it is really good content, and I've been watching the vlogs that you do for a while now, and yeah, you do some really good stuff. So well done to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. I really appreciate that.
So, how did you get into football? What started you off?
That really, I think that's the most typical story, isn't it? For his son and lad going down to the football at a young age. My dad took me to, so my family are split, half Fleetwood and half Blackpool. My dad took me to the Blackpool game when I was about 5, 6 maybe. Can't really remember too much about it, really, if I'm honest with you. But then he kept taking me, and then the more I remember going with him when I was maybe 7 or 8, and then he moved away to Peterborough, and I kept going. I got free tickets to watch Fleetwood Town when they're in the non-league. There was a player for them called Jamie Milligan at the time, who had spells at Everton and Blackpool, and he's now been the Bridge manager. He was like my coach at primary school, and he played for Fleetwood at the time. Came and gave free tickets, and was hooked up ever since. My nan was a teacher in a school near Fleetwood, so she got me tickets sometimes as well. So, and then kind of went from there, really. I've been a season ticket holder for coming up 12, 13 years now, being a season ticket at Fleetwood. So, I then started doing every away game in about 2015, and I sit here nearly 600 games later.
Wow. So it was sort of just that instant connection. You went your first game, and there you go. It was just all started from there.
Yeah, a little bit. And I think that you love the game. And I think, compare it to now, I think it was the best. I think if I could take time back, it'll probably be, not when I was really young, but be 12, 13, 14, 15, of where you like football, you follow football, but you don't really understand what goes on at a football club. I think the more you know what goes on at a football club, especially at the lower leagues, the more you can become a bit disillusioned with it, and a little bit you can lose that hope. You can lose the expectation because you actually see what goes on day to day. But when you're younger, you see it as just being a fan, seeing your heroes. You don't think of it as, well, the club have got to pay bills, the club have got to do this, and the club haven't got the biggest budget and stuff like that, and people losing their jobs after relegations and stuff. So yeah, it was just the kind of the sheer drama of the football and just feeling some sort of emotion with it really and devoting yourself to something.
So I've got to ask this then because I've been wondering. I think we asked AB7 Alfie, who I know you've also met.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we asked him this as well. Why EFL football? Because obviously you've got the Premier League, you've got bigger leagues. So why to you was EFL football something you wanted to cover, just go and watch, whatever it is? Why?
Yeah, Alfie's a great lad every time I've met him, and I know he'll be similar to me here. But I was grown up on EFL football, and don't get me wrong, I watched Premier League football growing up, and I still watch a bit of it now. Don't get me wrong, it's on plastered everywhere, isn't it? So you watch it because it's football. And the Premier League growing up, to be fair, I thought was really good until maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, where I don't know if it's the money that's been pumped in. Obviously, it's bigger than ever. I don't know whether it just feels fake. I don't know whether it's just become a bit stale and a bit boring because the same teams are going up and down, yet the same winners. It feels like it lost its magic. And I think the thing is with the EFL is it's the drama of it. And I think my first love came watching the championship games. I used to always watch the championship game when there was a regular Friday night game on the championship. I used to watch that all the time, and then you'd watch the Tuesday night ones and be watching like a Birmingham QPR two sides before I'd even covered any of these two sides. You wouldn't really care about before I started doing content on it. And then obviously Fleetwood were in League One, and I remember just it was I think the 16, 17s, and I did a video called League One Roundup, and I just covered it or what happened in the league, and it was mainly focused around what teams were doing all around, and didn't think anything of it, and it didn't really hit it off. I just enjoyed doing it and kept doing it, and then I kind of after lockdown thought there's, as you know, there's you kind of hit a peak with covering one team who are a smaller football club like Fleetwood are. They've got a limited fan base, so I started to enjoy covering other teams a little bit and having my say of what they were like. So yeah, I just think it's the sheer drama of it, and I think that it's real football because it's real people, and I think that if you were to ask Sunderland, Ipswich, Birmingham fans, Cardiff this year, when they drop down to League One or they even go down to League Two, they actually see football for a different light. They see mainstream people that work hard all week, work hard to go to the football. In the Premier League, I think it's so far off that. I think it's fake football, if I'm honest with you. It's great standard, don't get me wrong, but it feels the pricing of it, it just feels so fake to me, if I'm honest with you. And EFL is top.
Yeah, it definitely bores me a little bit. What about you, Daz? What do you think about the Premier League as like a whole?
With the Premier League, obviously, you've got your abroad fans, haven't you? Like, you obviously got your queues to get tickets and stuff like that. Like, people on the waiting list to even get a ticket for a standard league game. You got all your ones from, obviously, the foreign countries coming in to watch games. But really, with like EFL stuff, you don't have that. It says community-based teams, all the locals come and watch your team rather than people coming in from here, there, and everywhere. Which, for me, it makes local league football more like a community rather than the franchise which Premier League is. That's the reason why I've actually refused to watch any Premier League football all the time, because it's all business up there rather than actual football. It's all
Yeah,
big companies rather than the footballing side of things at the moment. That's how I feel anyway.
it does almost seem slightly scripted, in my opinion. Um, I think, yeah, I think as you both said there, it is real football, so it's something that you do get invested in. Obviously, you get the odd boring game like a 0-0 draw or something that you can kind of predict is going to happen. But at the same time, as much as you try and predict it, you don't know. I mean, I had all thoughts with Friday night when Fleetwood came to Vale Park and thought something about this game doesn't seem right. I don't think we're going to do it because we've got the kind of win rate against Fleetwood within the past, but the amount of goals that us as a club tend to concede is beyond me. And we've said this in the past. It just seems like there's some kind of curse over Port Vale all the time. But it's something. There's always something wrong or something that's just not right. But to us, that is what it feels like. It just feels like one big curse.
Yeah.
I'll say for me, with lower league football as well, anyone can beat anyone. Then in the
Yeah.
Prem, you've got your Man Cities, your Liverpools, your Arsenals, who you're basically guaranteed to win every game. Like you can go into, say, our next game, you could see anyone winning that game at the moment. Now we've got a new manager. You can see anyone winning that game. You look at the Prem's like, yeah, they're beating them, they're losing to them. You know what I mean? It's like, it is a bit predictable in the Prem nowadays. But obviously in lower league football, anyone can beat anyone. And that's what I love about the lower leagues. Like it's so unpredictable. Like would you see Bromley sitting top of League Two at the start of the season? You just wouldn't have even thought that'd be a thing.
No. But yeah, you know what? It is really true because I never thought in my wildest dreams that although the situation that Port Vale are in, that we'd go ahead and then concede first to Malden and Tiptree. That should have been a game that we controlled from 0 to 90 straight through, but it wasn't. And even after we started scoring goals, they still had those opportunities to score more. So to me, that was a bit of a shock that they'd even managed to get the one. But as I always say, it is the beauty of the FA Cup. It's the beauty of football. Anything can happen.
It's proper football for you.
Yeah.
Literally, just like Macclesfield beating Crystal Palace yesterday. You would have had that on the books. No one.
No one.
It's why low league football is better than the Prem. Like genuinely, just because the supplies of it all.
So, obviously, Ben, you've been to many Port Vale away days.
Yes.
So, what was Friday like? As someone who's doing content creation, commentary, what's that side of it rather than watching it as a fan? You're doing the commentary. What's that side of it like?
It's good. It's good. It can be hard. Don't get me wrong. Been doing it just over a year now, and big believer in. The first couple of months were harder than I thought it'd ever be. Genuinely, I'll be honest with you now. I've done co-commentary and I've done main commentary, and especially main commentary. That a lot of commentators that do EFL clubs get a lot of stick, and it's all well and good being a good commentator until you do it. In my opinion, genuinely, I remember doing the Colchester game and I got battered, absolutely battered for my commentary because it was the first time I'd done it and I was nervous. You're trying to watch the game, you're trying to juggle things, you're on your own at times as well, which was for my second main commentary early this year against Oldham, and it was your equipment doesn't work, so it can be tough. You can have effects that get to you. But doing the co-commentary is something that I really like. I was maybe not as honest with it at the start, worried to say certain stuff. Now I pretty much say anything realistically, not obviously go too far, but you've got to be honest and say what you see. I think is important. A lot of clubs cater well. Port Vale, I've done it twice now. I did it earlier in the year in the Papa John's game or the Virtue Trophy game, and enjoyed it. You've got to obviously be fair, talk the game how it is, but no, it's very enjoyable. I've been very thankful to Phil and BBC Radio Lancashire and Fleetwood who allow me to do it on the platform. I've managed to get, I think, 32 commentaries now under my belt, which I'm delighted with. Obviously, I want to try and hopefully hit 50 very, very soon. By the end of this year will be great. And no, I'm still learning. I'm still developing. I still want to gain opportunities. And always grateful for any opportunity I get, really, mate.
Well, yeah, I have heard you a few times on some games, especially at Vale. So you've done twice, you said now. I did hear you one earlier in the year. And yeah, I think really, obviously, as long as you don't go too far, is honesty something that fans want within that role? Like, do they want you to be as honest as sort of you can be without offending or hurting anyone?
Absolutely, I think yeah, I've got to be honest. Maybe something I've protected players too much in the past, that because it's very awkward where you go into, for example, I do a bit of work with a football club. It's great that, but sometimes it can hinder other things that you do, because I don't want to call out, for example, Toby Malarkey, for example. If he made a mistake that led to a goal, I slam him. I've got to go and speak to him next week. And I'm a big believer, and I'll only ever say things that I'd say to the faces. Really, if I think Toby Malarkey made a mistake, I'd sit down with him. I'd say where I think he went wrong. Obviously, I know nothing. I'm just a supporter. They're a lot more in the know or knowledgeable than me. But I would say, look, this is where, and I think that they'd respect that a little bit more, rather than I'm not a big believer in calling them names, calling them under the sun, fit to burn. They're not fit to play football, but because I think that is too far, and you're questioning professionalism there. So I wouldn't do that. I definitely feel that you grow from it. You learn as well to how to handle yourself around a press box, how to handle yourself around a first team manager. Very difficult when you're a fan. I think that's something I've been able to work on. That when you've had bad results or a bump in the road, that you're frustrated after a game. You've just got to remember, look, where you are, who you're around. You've got club officials near you. You've got people, hiring you from News Radio Lancashire, asking you questions. I got asked a question the other day saying, do I genuinely think the playoffs is a true aim? And I laughed it off. I went, they're not anywhere near it at this moment in time. They're miles off it. I think that got rid of a striker, that they've got big injuries. That, let's not kid a kiddo. Fleetwood are a mid-table club, and that's where they should probably be. You've got to be careful with how you answer those questions. It's another thing that, so there's a lot more to it, that fans want certain things and want you to say certain things, or want the club to do certain things, but you can't quite do it because you've got to think of who you're working with, and especially asking the manager questions after the game. Luckily, every time I've had it, Fleetwood have not lost the game. Well, the other day, Pete was not in the greatest of frames of mind because they just lost a game. They've not scored for 4 games, and he kind of snapped at a question that Phil, who I work with, and who asked the question. You've got to be careful of that, because you don't want to ask questions that the fans want to ask, and pee the manager off. I think Phil Bowers, who does Port Vale, there was a Port Vale questioning him why he didn't ask Darren Moore the question, do you really think you're the right man for the job? Well, Phil has to work with Darren Moore at the time every week. He has to, and he's working for the station. If Darren Moore takes hump with that question, he doesn't want to talk to their radio station. He'd two people off, and it ruins everything.
Yeah.
So you've got to be really careful, and that's something I would say in the last 12 months I've learned quite a lot of.
Well,
You have to have mind over heart, don't you?
Yeah.
So you got to work it mind over heart rather than
I can
being the
imagine.
passionate side of.
I can imagine where you don't, obviously, as a fan, if you're doing Fleetwood games, you don't get the result you're hoping for. I can imagine, you've got that sort of two sides in your brain. Okay, where am I? You can't really show too much of maybe your true emotion within that moment. Anger, because then you've obviously, as you said, you've got to think about who it is that you're around. Obviously, that could land you in a whole heap of trouble. But let's sort of go on to the main football side of things now. Let's go on to Fleetwood's the last couple of years. So we'll do last season. Obviously, we'll do season going now, and when you came down with us in League One, I think maybe let's start off there. What do you think went wrong within that season?
Vale or Fleetwood?
Both. Why not? Do Fleetwood first. Why not?
I think for Fleetwood personally, sometimes you get to a point. Everyone has a bus stop where they have to get off at. Fleetwood have maybe skipped a bus stop or two. That's one thing I would say. I think that they'd done very well in League One for 9 years, and in that 9 years, it was a very roller coaster 9 years. It wasn't just they were mid-table every year, which it felt. A lot of people think Fleetwood didn't really add anything to League One. They finished inside the playoffs twice, and then they were in 3 relegation battles. And in the other 4 years, they finished, I think there was a top 10 and a top 12 finish in there, and a couple of lower mid-table finishes in there. So It was ups and downs. There was big moments for the football club. They went to Fratton Park and won in League Two, but in League One they'd beaten Sheffield United twice. They finished fourth under Uwe Rosler, finished in the playoffs under Joey Barton, and it was a hell of a ride. And they'd probably made too many mistakes in years gone by. Fleetwood stayed up with 40 points one season and stayed up on goal difference. Bear in mind, in the second half of the season, they won 1 in 23, beat Crewe, who finished bottom of the league that year, with about 30 points. They were awful, Crewe, that year. Dave Artell got sacked with about 4 games to go. And they stayed up on goal difference because Gillingham lost to Rotherham on the last day. Rotherham, who won promotion that day, actually. And then after that, they kind of finished mid-table under Scott Brown, but weren't great. And ultimately, the owner, Andy Pilley, is accused of whatever he got accused of. I won't go too far into it. And got sent down for 13 years. That leaves an effect on the football club because Jamie Pilley, who came in, wasn't allowed to run it straight away because he getting the instructions from his dad. They had no leader at the top, and what basically filtered down was panic mode, and the club was struggling. The club had no one to calm everything down. The recruitment and the squad, if I'm honest with you, wasn't that bad at the start of the year. They had Stockley, they had Marriott, they had Vela, they had Hennigan, they had experienced players throughout that season. Junior Caterno, good player playing League One football now. Paddy Lane at the start of the year. I think left a couple of months prior actually, but they had a decent squad on paper. But what happened was they had a bad start under Scott Brown. They were just not scoring and unfortunately losing games of football fine margins, which I think the season before they were drawing or winning and getting away with. I wasn't a big fan of Scott Brown. Then they hired Lee Johnson, which was the most ludicrous appointment you could ever make. He wasn't right for the football club. He lasted 17 games. And to be fair, he got 17 points. He averaged a point a game, which he wasn't horrific, but he just didn't do enough. I think he won 4, he drew 5, and he lost the other 8. But ultimately, he came in trying to be totally different to Scott Brown, how he ran it. He ran it like a bit of a lads club to all of a sudden you're an old English teacher's coming in and you're running it totally different in a relegation battle. Charlie Adam, he gets potted, Charlie Adam comes in, and this is before the new year here. We've had 3 managers and it's New Year's Day. And ultimately, he loses his first 4. He loses key players. I think that Vela went his captain. I think Marriott had left the football club. Josh Earl left the football club. The better players, and you knew Fleetwood were getting ready for a relegation. They were 12 points adrift after those first 4 games. And then they started to win a few. The Port Vale game was actually the first win that Fleetwood got 2 or 3 months. I can't remember who your manager got sacked. But I can't remember who it was before Darren Moore came in.
Andy Crosby.
Crosby.
He's now at Tranmere.
Yeah, well, and he's one that his football for 6 months is good because he's very intense. And then all of a sudden it slows down a little bit. And I think that's happening at Tranmere a little bit. And then they went away at Bristol Rovers on the Tuesday and won. And they were 1-0 up at Lincoln, but had a sending off. Bear in mind, in games before, they were going up a goal or 2. They were 2-0 up at Wickham, had a player sent off at 2-0, promise on a cherry. It was just about moments. Fleetwood were okay in moments, just weren't getting the results under Charlie. And then the Lincoln game, they lose 2-1. There was a sending off again. And then there was too many sending off. I think they had 8 red cards that season. It says everything you need to know. 2 in 1 game, actually. And then they took it, to be fair, to the last 3 or 4 games of the season. They beat Northampton. They beat Leyton Orient away. They beat Burton on the last game. But in between, that was a Peterborough game where they were 1-0 up. They missed a penalty. They hadn't had a penalty all year. 9 minutes. And then they missed another penalty at 1-1. With 14 minutes to go, they lose 4-1. So I think that ultimately the ownership issues, 3 managers, wrong recruitment in the end, squad were disillusionised, the club had probably overachieved a little bit too much, and the club is still resetting a little bit and just made mistakes. And I think on Vale, I think they were just naive. Vale are a football club that get it so right when they go down to League Two. They sign good players that you think, well, how have they signed him? Stockley, Hennigan, Talai, Byers is another one, Croasdale. Players that have played for you in leagues, and you're thinking, how they drop that level? Then they drop up to League One, and they don't really mad. They think that the job is done. They think they can ride the momentum, and ultimately there's a big jump in between top end of League Two to the bottom six, bottom eight of League One ultimately. And Vale were just so naive. And I think the game that summed it up was the 2-0 up when you were against Fleetwood. And Stockley scored 2 goals in the last 5 minutes. That summed Vale everything up. And ultimately, a little bit, you've seen that a bit with Vale this season as well.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, honestly, there's no more to really say other than that. You've pretty much summed up the season there for both teams, and it was like that. It was a constant sort of thing. Yeah, it was totally like that all the time. So going back to Fleetwood, obviously you finished 14th last season. You're 13th now. Is that currently a realistic spot?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that the aim of the football club is to get into the promotion slash playoff spaces. I think they're miles off it. If I'm honest with you, I think that they're okay. They're better than last year. A lot better than last year. I'd go as far to say. Last season finished 14th. They started well. They had a bit of a bump in about October till January time where they won 1 in 13 and they struggled a little bit. Under Pete, they were very much a mid-table side for 4 or 5 months under his reign. We started okay this year, 7 points from the first 3, and then after that, the points dried up a little bit after September to October. And the performances weren't great, but Fleetwood were getting results. November, Fleetwood, you thought yellow ball season, we're doing quite good, and just this last month or so, everything's been. 3 weeks ago, Fleetwood beat Gillingham. It was a big result that just before Christmas. It felt like that was the marker for Fleetwood to go and get in the playoffs. You lose Ryan Graydon, you lose Ronan Coughlin to injury, you lose James Norwood to injury, and no one's coming through the door. I think that has dampened Fleetwood a little bit, but I think if Fleetwood can finish inside the top 10 this year, it'd be a great first season, full season for Pete Wild.
Definitely, if that happens, something to build on. Potentially get yourself back up there in League One.
Yeah, I think a lot of work needs to be done at the football club first. I think the foundations aren't there. I think that the manager's there. I think they've got a solid enough team. I think they're 4 or 5 short. You want to bring young academy footballers into the building. They got a good academy at Fleetwood. I think they rely too much on the academy, if I'm honest with you. I think that they want 4 or 5 and I think 2 or 3 at a max. I think that you've got to have some seniority in there. I think you go through Vale squad the other night and it wasn't a full strength squad. There's some serious experience in there. Buyers out there, you think of Devante Cole, you think Stock as a front two. Just walks all over Fleetwood, and Vale aren't that far away from Fleetwood, who got promoted last year. They're the bottom of the division that they want to get into. They're not that far off them, but it feels like Vale are miles clear of Fleetwood.
Definitely. Obviously, for us, it doesn't feel that way at the minute.
Doesn't at all.
I'm sure Daz will agree with
Not at all.
that. I'm sure all the plan within the football club, within the summer, Darren Moore, the board, whatever. I'm sure whatever that plan was has not gone to plan. So leading on to my next question, because obviously you've had quite a few opinions of Darren Moore, and
Yeah.
I feel like now he's obviously not the manager of the club anymore. We can sort of say a little bit more about this. So, what did you think about Darren Moore? Obviously, a very likable person, but the football worked for League Two, but hasn't really worked for League One. What about the appointment of John Brady just coming in over the last few days?
Yeah, on Darren Moore, I think that when fans are frustrated with a manager in the division below and they get promoted and there's still questions asked, that says everything you need to know. And I think with Darren Moore, that there was plenty of questions I felt asked of him when Vale were in League Two. And I remember Vale went, I think it was either 8 or 10 unbeaten at Fleetwood last year,
Yeah.
and they scored late. I think was it 1-1 or 2? I think it was 1-1, wasn't it, at
I think
Highbury?
it was, yeah.
Graydon scored, and then I think it might have been Talai that scored like 95th minute. And
Sounds about right.
Vale have just scored an equaliser in the last minute. At Fleetwood, Fleetwood weren't great last year, but I think they only lost three or four home games last year. In the whole of the division, they were drawing a lot, and they were getting better under Pete. I think they'd only lost 1 home game in 3 months under Pete. And Vale went 8 unbeaten, and there was a lot of frustration with Vale fans outside the ground on social media. And I was like, they're 8 unbeaten, they're in and around the top 3 spaces here. Why is there frustration? Well, I watched it and I'm like, there's no style of play. I think that you need to watch your team and think you can draw a game or lose a game, but you know what you're going to do. You have a plan and you have a plan B. I felt that with Aaron Moore, he just put the good players out there, and I felt that the players got him the results at the end of the day, which you've got to do. Fair play to him, and you've got to manage him in a certain way. But I felt that it was too much instincts, too much what the players would get him out of the hole because of the quality they've got compared to others. And I think I think 3 days later, I think you lost 2-1, 3-1 away at Colchester on a Tuesday night. They were going well.
That was
They beat us on the next Saturday, actually 3-0, and they were into the playoffs at the time under the Cowleys. And then this year, just kind of, I don't think he's been backed. I think you lose your star striker. I don't think that he was replaced quick enough. To be fair, you go through Vale's results at the start of the year. You were in games, every game they were in. I think the Stevenage game is Vale all over in League One, and after that result, I said on League One Live, I went, that is the reason why Vale will ultimately get relegated this year, because they do that too much. They capitulate way too much, and they don't have the nous about them to get results in this division. And to be fair, you went away a few weeks later, and I think you beat Birmingham in the cup, and I thought maybe you'll be up for it. But then you were just losing too many games of football 1-0. Doncaster, I think, was a bit of a stinking one because they had one shot, scored it. And then you go to the Peterborough game, the Plymouth game, both 1-0. The Bolton game was sandwiched in between where obviously you got hammered, but for 15 minutes you could have easily had a couple yourself. The Lincoln game was 1-0. You were unlucky that day. Bradford, obviously, after Darren Moore, 1-0. So you're in game, but you just not got them. You're in the games, but you weren't taking your chances. And I said, Vale are a mid-table side in League One, 18-yard box to 18-yard box. Unfortunately, they are the worst team in the league in both boxes. They don't take the chances, concede the chances, and ultimately, that's why Darren Moore got sacked. John Brady's come in, who's someone that interviewed for the Fleetwood job when Pete Wild got it. It was down to those two. He's a good talker. He's a good motivator. I think that there'll be periods where he's doing well. And I think there'll be a period where he might not get the results just because of the way his football is. But I think that if given time, I think he should be judged over 2.5 years rather than the next 6 months. That ultimately it looks like Vale are going to probably get relegated. Now they're 11 points adrift. It's a tough ask. If they're a League One football club in 2.5 years' time, I think that his job done.
Yeah, honestly,
Definitely.
yeah, I've got to agree. I think that Huddersfield game said a lot about not just the season, but the fact that it had almost seemed like the team had just sort of like
Give up.
Darren Moore had totally lost it, totally lost them because yes, obviously Huddersfield are one of the stronger teams within the league, and yeah, I wasn't expecting a result. I said, yeah, we're probably going to lose, but didn't expect to lose in the manner that we did. Because obviously you want to go to some of the stronger teams within the division, and you don't want to embarrass yourself. But
No.
that was totally humiliating, and I think that said a lot for the way that the players were with Darren Moore. I don't think that his football suited them within this division. Obviously, I did say that it works in League Two, and it did work in League Two. Maybe still not as well as we all would have hoped. I think even if I wasn't a Vale fan last season before that had began, I said that Vale were going to win the league, and then the last couple of weeks, yeah, you have Bromley 5-0, you beat them at home 5-0, and then you have that dip 2-2 at Grimsby was a big game. And then losing to Carlisle was an even bigger game, a bigger loss. So you were in that last couple of weeks of the season, you have that dip. We still did it, but I personally had Vale to go up, and I'm pretty sure, obviously, other Vale fans would have, but I'm pretty sure other people who support other clubs would have also had Vale to go up automatically within that top spot, winning the league.
And you win the league.
Yeah, I did see that. But something about this season hasn't gone right, and maybe it was slightly the recruitment. You've got some good players in there on the day. Jordan Shipley can be a really good player on his day. I don't think he's been given enough chance, really, in my opinion.
He
I
hasn't,
think
genuinely.
no, I think he does need to be played a little bit more. But we've got these good players. Obviously, Liam Gordon came in. Players like that who, obviously, Ryan Crosdale had never played in League One before because he came to us after getting promotion with Stockport. And he hasn't done too bad. And there's just these players that you'd expect to play that haven't been playing under Darren Moore. George Byers was dropped for a bit, which now that I come to think about it, I do sort of agree with because he wasn't performing how you'd expect George Byers to perform. But he's sort of come out of his shell now and shown why George Byers should be playing at this level. Because I think before all that, he was just performing like a solid League Two player. And when you think about George Byers, that's not what you think of.
No.
It doesn't help that Moore was playing players in positions which weren't their positions. So you'd have Ronan playing at striker, you'd have wingers playing wing back. Like it's square pegs round holes, which is how Darren Moore seemed to make a lineup, which is not ideal really when you're there fighting for your life in League One. And same as when we covered up last year, really. Like we have major injury issues every single season, and it's just the Port Vale way. We never do anything easy. I've learned that over 25 years of being a Vale fan. Like genuinely, we never do it easy, right? We never. And it's a bit frustrating. I love a season where it's like, yeah, we're going breezy, it's going to be no issues, anything like that. But the fact we got absolutely battered against Stockport, battered against Bolton, battered against Huddersfield, which are three big teams in the league, we've embarrassed ourselves there. And honestly, I think Dalmore could have gone after the Stockport Bolton. There's obviously 2 games in a row we got absolutely thumps. And the last thing you need is a manager who can't seem to work out how to turn them games around, or even games after that against the lower teams in the league, find a way to win them games. It was basically pure instinct on what he was making decisions for. Like we could see the goal. Right now, I'm going to make the subs now, even though past 10 minutes before that, the game was getting lost completely. We weren't getting the ball. We weren't playing it round. It was just constant pressure, and you make them subs before you concede the goal, in my opinion, rather than reacting like, oh, he scored now, right, let's get a striker on, take a centre back off, which is always seemed to be the situation with Moore. We'd end up a game with 5 strikers on the pitch trying to chase a goal,
Yeah.
where we could have been in a situation where, yeah, we've called one for a draw, let's bring the defenders on. I prefer that than chucking 5 strikers on and none of them get a ball door. That's what I prefer personally.
It was
But hopefully,
the same football. We've said this in lots of other episodes. Obviously, we haven't been going for very long, but the first episode was when we lost to Plymouth at home, and
yeah,
obviously Tolai scored. And yeah, we were slightly angry after that because, as you can expect, you just would be. But we said this numerous times throughout other episodes that it was the same football, expecting different results. And obviously, the team weren't having it. The team weren't really playing for Darren Moore. And when we started to switch, obviously the last few weeks that he was there at Vale, we started to switch to 4-2-2 or a 4-2-3-1, whatever it was. Yeah, was that his football? Like,
I don't think it was personally.
it didn't seem like it.
We always thought he was one of his first team coaches, which was making the shouts. Because you look at the sideline, Dalmore was just stood there, like he always was. He was always a very quiet manager, but you could see his assistant next to him making the calls, which was an interesting one. Because
Yeah,
obviously, you have your manager who makes decisions, and your coach is there to help, rather than your first team coach taking over the reins. This is how it felt anyway.
yeah, I can back that because, in my opinion, I think really Darren Moore's football over the last few years, obviously, he's always been a free at the back manager, and I'm pretty sure there are other managers obviously out there that have been mainly free at the back. But is it slightly outdated now? Because you see most teams playing 4, even 5, which I don't really rate either. I don't really rate 5, but it almost seems like most 4 at the back formations have got a sort of balance to them, which is why we may not have still been picking up them results, but as a team we've played slightly better. And what I want to know from you, Ben, is do we reckon, because we've said this before, that the sacking of Darren Moore was too late? And obviously, yeah, it's all well and good to try and change the situation, leave him to try and change it, but does it get to a time when, and did it get to a time where it was too late?
Maybe, and maybe so. I think that ultimately, I think that patch in the middle of the season saves his job, didn't it? Where you beat Mansfield, you went away at extra and won, and you beat Barnsley, didn't you? And then you got that point against Northampton where you got those 10 points in I think 4 games of each other that were deemed really good. But realistically, if they want to stay in League One, I think you've got to go minimum of go win 2 of those and draw 1. Barnsley away at the time, you think feet there's not all bad. You had games early in the year where you should have probably beaten Doncaster. Stevens should have got a minimum of a point, if not 3. So up to that point, I could see why he was still in a job. People talk about his promotions. People talk about what he'd done at Doncaster, which he didn't complete his job. I think that the Sheffield Wednesday thing, the argument is, wow, well, okay, you got Sheffield Wednesday promoted. Yeah, he got 96 points, but squad should have got promoted, and everywhere he's been, there's always been doubters about him. So, yeah, I was surprised how long he lasted, but I wasn't surprised when it was. I was surprised Vale actually pulled the plug in the end. I didn't think they would.
I didn't think he would, to be honest.
No, we were
I
starting
never
to
thought it was going to
really
happen.
No, because I mean, it's in my opinion it was a stupid idea. Obviously, you think Darren Moore, you think big name promotions, whatever. This pull, obviously, George Byers down to League Two. You wouldn't have expected that. We've said this earlier, but it was just, I don't know. I think a 5-year contract was just silly, and I think John Brady coming in on an 18-month contract was a lot more sensible. I use the word sensible because obviously if it goes wrong, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. They probably won't sack him. They'd just give him another season in, obviously, League Two. But I don't know, if something were to go wrong, it wouldn't be as much to pay out as I can imagine Darren Moore, getting rid of Darren Moore, that payout would have been quite a lot.
So, a nice
So,
pledge in back pocket, put it that way.
yeah, definitely. But obviously, you've been known on your account, Ben, to have a soft spot for Port Vale. So, where did that come from? How do you view us?
I wouldn't say it's a soft spot. It's just I admire what Vale have done. I think that when I first started it, I think Vale were probably the most critical fan base with me, really, if I'm honest with you. But then after a while, I think that I did a video a few years ago against Vale that seemed to go down well. I think the one where last season you beat us 3-1 went down well as well. I always enjoy my trips to Port Vale. I think that the supporters are always great. The people at Vale are always very friendly. I think we were greeted with the warmest receptions the other day, me and Phil, going into the press room and stuff. And again, yeah, just come from lovely people, good fan base, and always willing to talk football, really.
Definitely. I mean, I think Stoke as a whole is just known for being friendly. And obviously, everywhere's got friendly people, everywhere's got people who aren't friendly. But there is a lot of people that say, "Oh, Stoke, like people from Stoke are really friendly." I don't actually know how much I back that. I'll be honest, because most encounters I've had with other people from here haven't really been the best. But I suppose, as I said, you get that everywhere. But how do you reckon that we're viewed? Obviously, you're a Fleetwood fan, so you're another fan base. How do you reckon Vale are viewed from other fan bases?
I think that the respect, yeah. I think that obviously they just see Port Vale as just another football club, if I'm honest with you. But I always like to deep. I always think that what fan bases have been through, and I think that I remember going to Port Vale 10 years ago, and it was a mess of a football club. It was horrific. It was dull. It was not a nice place to go and play. I would probably say it's one of the worst aways that I did when I was younger. Didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, and it almost felt like a derelict house with no lights, no heating,
Yeah,
damp,
definitely.
cold. And then Carol Sharman came into the football club, and it felt like something had lifted a little bit, something had changed, and ultimately the fans became a bit more positive. The ground was, it felt a little bit more, it had a bit of work to be done. I think for years there was that stand on the side where the players come out. I think that needed work for years. From memory, I might
Yeah,
be wrong on that, but that was done up. It felt like they had new like a bit of paint. The seats had been done up. The training ground, obviously, I think it's just behind the ground, isn't it? The training
of
ground.
course, yeah.
And I think I think remember I remember who it was, but there was a player that came out and spoke about Port Vale. I think it might have been Connor Ripley that came out and said that they're not blessed to have the biggest of budgets, so they might not have the best players in the league that they're in. But one thing they will always have is they'll have good facilities, they'll have a settled changing room, they'll have a good place to train, they'll have good meals, the kit will get washed, they'll get the basics done for them, and that's what they do. They look after you, and I think that's what's changed at Vale Park. It's a much better place to be. Expectation, I think, has rose, which I think is always good. I think that Vale think themselves as a mid-table League One football club. I think they've got every right to think that. I think they should be. I think they should be able to compete with some football clubs. You look at there's a lot smaller, in my opinion, doing well in League One than Port Vale. Port Vale aren't a bottom four football club in terms of size in League One. I think they're anywhere they can, if they wanted to, and with the right investment, they can finish inside the top 12 on a good season. I genuinely believe that. So, yeah, I think that my persona has changed on Port Vale. I didn't used to enjoy my trips to Vale Park, but now I think that it's brilliant and they ran well, good people at the football club. And like I say, I think that you're in safe pair of hands. I think Carol has made her mistakes, don't get me wrong, but I think that you can forgive an owner for making mistakes because I think every decision she makes is with good intentions. It's not like one of these owners that are just purely just no interest in the football club. I think that you've definitely got the right people there, and I, I I just think patience is needed. I think that if you came down this year, which looks likely at the moment, unfortunately, I don't think it would be a disaster if you didn't go straight back up. I think sometimes you need to heal, need to really reset, and I think the next time you go back into League One is where the ownership and the football club will be judged. Because if you go back up again just to come down again, it'll be like, well, what is the point? You need next time you get up to League One, you need to at least prove your worth. Northampton can do it. Mansfield can do it. I think Northampton are the pinnacle that aren't too similar in terms as you in fan base wise, budgets wise. If they can do it, I think that Vale are probably a little bit better off than Northampton. Exeter are the same. Vale can compete with those teams, and it's just over a regular season if they can do it.
Definitely. So obviously we're talking about the two leagues, obviously League Two and League One. I don't think we're going to go into the Championship because I don't really think either of us really cover much of that. But the quality gap, obviously, there's been people in the past who've said, okay, it's not that different, but I think now it's a lot different.
Yeah, I think it is. I think that you look at League Two this year. I use it as I think where I got frustrated last year with Fleetwood. Fleetwood have been very good at this year, so I can't fault them. You can stat pad, so you can pick up lots of points, especially at home. Newport, Harrogate, Accrington, yeah, who are doing well by the way lately. Accrington, but there's 7 or 8 teams down there that you think you should be walking all over. When you Port Vale, for example, even Fleetwood should be if they want to compete. If you want to finish inside the playoffs, you can beat those. In League One, there isn't that really, and unfortunately, you become that a little bit. Like Northampton is a bit of a tricky one. They can come and get a point. Exeter can. They've gone to Wickham, Lincoln this year, Wimbledon, and won. I think all 1-0. You've got Wimbledon who have come up. You've got sides that can regularly get results, whereas in League Two. You haven't got that quality, and it feels like a big jump. But in the top end of League Two, the sides that can come and compete with sides at the bottom end of League One, the Walsalls, the Bromleys, I think the biggest pains to ever play football because they just do the dark arts so well. They're effective, they're strong, they're competitive. Notts County, Chesterfield. I think if they went up to League One, they'd do better than they are doing in League Two because I think that they're suited to League One more than League Two a little bit. So yeah, I think all the differences is they're just the bottom ends of League One to League Two. The bottom end of League One is so competitive, and even if you were to play Rotherham, for example, Rotherham are a lot better to Harrogate. Blackpool, Plymouth, who are down there. I mean, it's a massive jump. I think that there's a league and a half jump between them both. Genuinely, I do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, it is different. Obviously, I have seen people that are like, it can't be that different, but when you've got the likes of Plymouth, who really you wouldn't think would have been bottom, we obviously shouldn't really be bottom with the players that we have got. And then you've got Bradford, who are up there. So, leads me on to my second question. I say for both of you, what clubs are under and overachieving? What do you reckon, Daz? Who do you reckon?
Overachieving.
Yeah.
League Two wise, I'd say Bromley. Like, I would not expect Bromley to be up there.
No.
But Michael Cheek's getting his goals, and Andy Woodman is doing a fantastic job there. Obviously, bringing them up into the Football League and being top of the table halfway through his second season in League Two is insane. Underachieving, League Two, massively. Bristol Rovers, Shrewsbury. Like, you got them teams coming down from League One. You'd expect them to be coming straight back up, especially
Yeah.
the size of the clubs like Shrewsbury. But they're struggling, really, really struggling now, which I would not have thought of start of the season. I think I put them playoffs in my prediction video start of the year, and I'm just absolutely shocked they're all the way down there. But then looking to League One, Stevenage overachieving because
Yeah.
I definitely want to picture them being up there. League One underachieving. Your Plymouths, your Peterboroughs were underperforming majorly. Obviously, you got Peterborough who've been playoff pushing sides for years. Plymouth just coming down from the Championship, you'd expect them to go straight back up. But I just think it's the managerial side of Plymouth which is letting them down a bit. Because obviously, you had Wayne Rooney who came in. He didn't do very well. I don't think Cleverley's doing the best job. Obviously, going for first time coaches, which, yeah, it could be a breath of fresh air into a club, but I just don't think it's working for them, like, generally. Or
No, I can back that.
one of them at the end of the day. Football's football. Things
Yeah.
happen in football which you just can't explain.
You've got teams like obviously Peterborough, Blackpool, Plymouth, who shouldn't. They definitely shouldn't be down there. I suppose us, you could kind of argue like, yeah, no one really wants to see Port Vale at the bottom. Obviously, we don't think we should be there, and there's probably quite a few other fan bases and teams that are like, how are they bottom? But it is something you can sort of argue about because, as I say, there's just some kind of curse on the club. So, yeah,
How it feels anyway.
it does feel that way. So, I suppose it is something you can argue. So, what about you, Ben? What do you reckon? Who is over and underachieving within the two leagues?
I think you would have said Peterborough a few weeks ago, but now they're 4 points off the playoffs, which I think that is where
Excellent.
Peterborough should be. They should be in and around. I think that Peterborough had this squad where they were brilliant, weren't they, for years, and they had these unbelievable talents, and unfortunately, they've not replaced them. And it takes a while, and that's what Peterborough always do. They always seem to find a replacement eventually. They're a bit slow with it because they want to try and find the right ones, and they go in 2 or 3 year cycles. I think they're in the second year of the 3 year cycle. Last year disappointing, this year build, next year perform. And that's how I try and see football clubs. I think they're doing okay. I think Wickham, I think like Mansfield, Wimbledon, Exeter are all doing where they should be. Reading the same. I think Stevenage are overachieving for the way they play. However, if you look at the last 15 games, I think that's probably where Stevenage should be over the last 12, 13 games more so. Kind of 15th or 16th in the form guide, not scoring many goals. They just started well. I think that Bradford have done a phenomenal job to be where they are. That squad is just well built. It's not got loads of quality. It's not got loads of players that you think are going to be championship quality, but they are just good at what they do. They're effective. I think Cardiff, to a point, deserving humongous credit for saying I think they're overachieving, not in position wise, but points wise and performance wise. Lincoln City, outstanding. Well above where everyone would put Lincoln. For me, I would always have Lincoln in a playoff battle because I think they're the best run football club in the division. I genuinely believe that. I think that if you look at their recruitment, if you look at the way they ran, look at the transfers they bring in, the money they accumulate as a football club is off the scale. There's no club that trade better pound for pound than Lincoln City, so it doesn't really surprise me that. But they are fit to be second place. I think you've got to have a look at Leyton Orient, another football club that they finished inside the playoffs last year, but they're another one that they lost Keeley, they lost Donnelly, who were on loan, they lost Galbraith, who was permanent, they lost Kelman, who was on loan. You lose 4 players into that squad, all of a sudden there's a big drop off, and I think that they're underachieving a little bit, but I expected them to be probably 10th to 12th, but they're only a win away. I think Vale, Ed Down's been a relegation battle this year. I think points wise, I think that they're off the mark a little bit. I think that if Vale were on 25 points or 26 points, I don't think they'd be underachieving too much. I think it's because they are so far. If there were 3 points adrift at this point in the season, you'd think probably be about right, really. Coming up, you're going to struggle. Going to League Two, I think that Bromley are the perfect example of small budget, but the way they ran and the way they've won 7 in a row doesn't really surprise you anymore. I think that Walsall overachieve every year for what they've got, the budget they've got, but the football is awful, and I think that's got to be said. Chesterfield and Notts County aren't doing it maybe as well as you'd expect, but they're in a promotion battle. Gillingham started off well, like they always do every year. They're 16th now, they're 8 points off the playoffs. Bristol Rovers struggling, but I think that they'll find the way under Steve Evans. Shrewsbury don't really surprise me, if I'm honest with you. Crawley don't surprise me. Barrow, for the budget they've got, the facilities they've got, they should be doing a lot better than 19th in my eyes. So that's kind of how I would sum it up, really.
Yeah, I totally agree, to be honest, because you've pretty much summed all of that up. But I have got a few questions for, well, both of you. Obviously, I'll give my answers as well. But this one, it is made to sort of cause a few debates, but VAR, because is it something that should come to the EFL purely because obviously you see, personally I don't want it to, but you see these kind of errors that these officials are making. I mean, something that will stand out from a Vale fan's perspective is Bromley away last season in League Two, a goal that was over the line but not given. Stockley's goal, which I'm pretty sure he still got paid his bonus for, because at the end of the day it was a goal. So, should VAR come to the EFL? What do we reckon, Daz?
I
What do you think?
wouldn't say VAR. I'd say at least goal line technology in the lower leagues.
Yeah.
Because that would prevent that Stockley goal from never existing. Like, I can't stand VAR in itself. It's too much of a dragged out process, makes the games longer than it needs to be. Always seems to be getting mistakes through it anyway. Like, I don't like VAR. I'd happily take goal line technology down the lower leagues, even if it's just all around the pitch, because we've had a few recently where throw-ins have been given which the ball's not even gone out, or the ball's gone out and no one's given them. That's what frustrates me, and I just don't like VAR. I'd rather stick with just goal line technology to prevent any mistakes like that Stockley goal was.
Yeah. No, I can back that. Ben, what do you reckon? Should it come to the lower leagues?
No, it's too expensive, too time consuming, and it takes its soul out of football.
Yeah. I can back both. Goal line technology, I think, I would take.
Yeah, I agree with
because there is sort of basic mistakes that are being made that shouldn't be. But I suppose the more it happens, the more you get used to it. I mean, we have to get used to it, and I'm sure, obviously, other teams in the division would. But let's talk about maybe the officiating within that Blackpool game. Obviously, we ended up winning 5-1, and I think maybe, the fact that Blackpool went down to 10 men would have changed the game. But my point is that many teams either survive or still do well with 10 men, and it can be hard to break a team down still with 10 men. I think if anything did it, it would have been the change of shape, because that first half we didn't do exceptionally well. But obviously to come out winning your first game in however long, 5-1 against an informed sort of Blackpool side that I was expecting a loss. I will be honest, I was going into the New Year's Day fixture expecting a loss. But again, many teams, they do survive with 10 men, and I get the excuse, okay, yeah, we were down to 10 men. I do get that, but in my opinion, I don't think that's good enough. So what do we reckon went wrong for that Blackpool side? Because for me, there was, obviously, it went down to 10 men, but I think sort of that first goal went in, that Stockley goal went in, and they sort of just lost their heads. So what do we reckon, Daz? What do you reckon?
Obviously, for us, we went from 5 back to 4 at the back. We went attacking. We went for them, which we weren't doing first half really. We weren't properly attacking Blackpool, and obviously we have got quality up front. We just don't take our chances, but somehow we managed to start taking the chances when we get them now, which is massive because we have the stat where we got the most clear-cut chances and not taking them, which has been our biggest mistake this season. That's why we're down where we are. If we had taken our chances, I don't think we'd be sat where we are. I think we'd be outside the relegation zone, but not far from it.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're 11 points adrift in Northampton now, we honestly need to start taking the chances when we get them. And in that Blackpool game, that's what we were doing. Like, we would never have scored 5 goals before under Darren Moore, in my opinion.
No.
Because we get into position and then we panic. Which seems to be how we seem to be recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fact we actually attacked them, and Blackpool just probably weren't expecting it. Obviously, we had Jamie Smith in charge for that game. No one really knows his game.
Yeah.
Like how it was with Crosby when we got promoted from League Two. No one knew how our football was going to be, and then the start of the League One campaign under Crosby, we were playing good football. People didn't seem to know how to read us, but then everyone learned how we played, and then we started struggling. And that's just how we are as a club. We always get easily read after a few games.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened with us this season, I'm afraid. Like, teams know down Moore's football. It's slow, it's pedantic, and we just never really aim with a chance, really, under Moore, in my opinion.
Definitely too, sort of predictable. And I think even in League Two, yes, it worked, but you got to think about it. It only sort of just about worked. Like, we've said this before. Without Laurent Talai, we wouldn't have actually been up. We would not have been promoted.
He wasn't, because when he first came in, he was playing on the right wing, which is not his position at all. Like, yeah, he's a quick lad, but he's not a winger. And like I said earlier, we used to play square pegs and round holes, and that's just how Darren Moore has been. He's obviously had a couple of transfer windows to try and get us into a position where we've got players who fit the positions, and he just started bringing wingers in where we don't play wingers. Like, he's brought Ben Wayne in this summer. Never really played him until the later part of his stint at the Vale. And I'm glad he's brought him in, because John Brady has wanted him for a while, so I can see Ben Wayne actually pushing on now. But generally, I think it's the fact that Dan Moore gets defensive after we score a single goal. We could go 1-0 up. We're straight on the back foot. We're trying to defend that 1-0 lead. With Blackpool, we scored the equaliser. We kept pushing. Scored the second. Kept pushing. And that's something which we have not seen in a long time. Maybe from the
Definitely.
Bromley game, where obviously we scored 5 in that game, but we've not really ever kept pushing. Mind you,
No.
the Barnsley game and the Cup, that's the one-off.
Yeah.
Because we obviously won 5-1 in that. But he never really is like, we scored a goal, let's push on, let's get some more, let's get 4, let's get 5. He was always, we'll try and grind out this 1-0 win after scoring in the 10th minute, which it's never going to work. Even if we're trying to get an equaliser, we get that equaliser, we'd sit back, we could see in 95th minute, 96th minute. Because
Definitely.
we always seem to lose a bet at the end of the game. It is literally the Vale way of how we end up after a while. It's just a constant cycle. We get better, we seem like we're getting somewhere, and then we fall off massively. And I've learned that over the past 25 years as a supporting the club. It's never easy being a Vale fan. And it's probably going to be the death of me. But
Yeah.
it's just football. It's just football for you. And going back to the original question, yeah, it was Blackpool not expecting the formation change and they react to it.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple of sort of prompts here for both of you. We'll start off, obviously there's 3 here. We'll start off with you, Ben, for each one. I want to know if you agree or disagree with these. Promotion isn't always a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah?
Agree
I
with
agree.
that.
Why? Why isn't promotion always a good thing?
Sometimes you can get promoted too early. Sometimes you can get promoted from not being in a good place. Sometimes you can just be going up to get beat every week. It's good money wise, but the money needs to be invested, fairly and in the right manner. I'd say, mate.
Definitely. Daz, what about you?
Thing is,
Is promotion
you
a
can
good thing?
easily fluke a promotion as well. You can easily fluke a promotion. Like you could
Yeah.
have a good run of form, get you up there. End of the season, you may be struggling. Your form's down, your heads are down, but then you still manage to scrape through it, which is kind of what we were like end of last season, really. Because obviously we lost to Carlisle, we lost to Gillingham on the last day. We didn't really bring players in,
Yeah.
so it's basically the same squad to what lost them final 2 games, which could have won us the title. But yeah, it's easy to fluke a promotion. But I wouldn't say our promotion was a fluke, but some teams can do that, like go through a good run of form and then almost bottoms at the end, and then you're just not in the best mindset going into the next season.
Yeah. Definitely. So it's sort of it sort of connects with this one then. So are some clubs are not built to go up. I sort of think about this sometimes and think maybe we are one of them clubs because every time we go up, we're either coming back down or fighting to stay in League One. So I suppose it's something you could argue about, but are some clubs just not built for a league higher? Personally, I I don't know. That's a bit hit and miss in my opinion. I think it's any team could get a promotion if they do the right things, but I don't know. At the same time, you've got to think, obviously, with the situation that we find ourselves in repeatedly, that maybe we're not built for League One. So I kind of agree, but also kind of like disagree. I think it's just sort of the same mistakes. We've had this championship ready plan since Carroll took over, and there's something about this plan, yeah. Okay, every owner makes a mistake, whether you're a good one or obviously not a very good one, but something about this plan isn't working. Maybe it's slightly too enthusiastic. Just get yourself, make yourself a sustainable League One side, and then focus on building, which
Yeah,
hasn't gone to
it,
plan anyway. But I don't know. I personally, I'm leaning more towards I don't agree with that. I disagree with that.
I don't think teams aren't built to go up. Because obviously, it's the structure of the football club in itself which really defines what's going to happen on the pitch.
Yeah,
Because, say, like, yeah, we said championship ready, let's get that. But, yeah, Carl's doing a good job at the club. But, end of the day, the finances dictate where you get in football.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you've questioned before if the fact that we didn't get a good enough budget in the summer to build a team ready for League One. Like, yeah, we have a lot of League One players in League Two, but we haven't built on that. Like, obviously, we've got the few free agents in. So, obviously, bought Devante Cole in for free. We bought Stockley, no, Shipley in for free. We bought Ben Wayne in for free. We bought in a very decent League One centre back in Cameron Humphreys as a free as well. But it's the fact that we're buying players for the frees, basically we're taking other teams' players which they don't want, and they were League One players. So is that fact that we're picking up lower League One players affected us in that way? If you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Ben Wade wasn't pulling up trees at Mansfield or Plymouth. Obviously, Devante Cole did all right for Barnsley when he was in League One, but he made his move to West Brom, didn't really play. Um, Also, up and just down to having the wrong manager, really. Like, obviously, we had Darren Moore, brought us up, but obviously, he wasn't ready to adapt his football
Yeah.
to the league, which obviously has caused this a massive upset and being rock bottom. Obviously, 11 points adrift, which is down to him not really willing to take a risk in his football, because Moorball was the most boring football I've watched in 25 years.
Yeah.
I really want Mickey Adams football back, where he's willing to put everyone on the transfer list if they underperform. That's what I would prefer, rather than sticking with the same side constantly, which are underperforming. Like, yeah, I get a lot of stick for constantly backing George Byers, because he is one of my favourite footballers since I've been following the game. And obviously, he went through that rough patch where I would back him.
Yeah.
Uh, but obviously, now he's had that period out of the team, I've learned that, yeah, he was underperforming. Obviously, his creativity's back. He's playing a role which he wants to play now, which he wasn't really playing under Darren Moore. He was playing more defensive than attacking, which is his style of football.
Definitely.
But yeah, I wouldn't say teams aren't built to go up. It's just the structural situation of the club which dictates whether they're going to stay up there or they are going to come back down.
Yeah.
It's not the
So,
football side; it is the structure of the club.
where are you on that then, Ben? Some clubs are not built to go up. Where are you on that?
It all depends, because some haven't got the finances, some haven't got the facilities, some haven't got the ground space, some haven't got the nous to do it, to get through. Or I think Tottenham were labelled some clubs aren't not going to win a trophy. You'd put Tottenham in that story, wouldn't you? A little bit. So yeah, I can see it to a certain extent, but I think that anyone can get promoted. Anyone can go and have their season and go and do something. So it's just about changing the narrative. By the way, I might have to go about 5:30. Just, is that okay?
That's fine. We are
That's perfectly
almost
fine.
done. Yeah, almost done.
Thank you.
We'll just whiz through these then. So this is actually more for you, Ben, because we're sort of new to this. Fan content is replacing traditional football media.
A little bit. I think that the traditional media will always be there. I think that it should always be there. I think it's always interesting to see what professionals say, and you can learn a lot. Fan media is great. Sometimes can be a bit over much. I think now, I think it's great. But I think that, yeah, fan media is totally different, and it's definitely changed the narrative. I think that there's some really good platforms and some big platforms that are probably bigger now than terrestrial TV.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, we'll skip a couple of these then because some of these really I think we've already covered. So again, mainly for you, Ben, because it's more you've been doing this a lot longer than we have. So how do you deal with opinions and backlash and advice for fans or just anyone wanting to start creating this kind of content?
you want to start doing it, do it. Do anything that you enjoy, and make sure that everything you say you believe. Don't play up to a crowd. Don't try and be something that you're not. Be yourself, because you'll get found out eventually. And if you get backlash, just try and take. If it's constructive feedback, take it. If it's not, think about it and take advice off people that you really care about or admire. So you're going to get it, unfortunately, but listen to the 99 people in the 100 that'll be nice about it. So that's the one thing I kind of try and do. Just try and out of one ear in the other, really.
Definitely. We'll whisk through some of these quick fire questions, and after that we are done. So let's keep answers short, because obviously if you've got to go soon. Best away day in the EFL, in your opinion, Ben?
What's based on best
Just-
way that
just-
I've ever done,
Yeah,
or
one
like
that you've
one
been
way
to.
that I look forward to?
Either, whatever.
I'd say the best one I've ever done is Fleetwood away at Scunthorpe, 1-2-0, went 18 unbeaten in League One. I think the best away day that I do year on year, I've not done it for a couple of years now, is Peterborough. I always like going to Peterborough.
Okay. A ground that you've been to that everybody you should visit. One of the best grounds you think you've been to.
Ooh. Ipswich, Portman Road.
I
I
can
like
back
Portman
that.
Road.
I can back that. One rule you'd change within football.
The time clock. I think that there's too much of this. The ball's out of play for too much in the game. I think that in added time, I don't think enough gets added on. I think that any injury that goes down, any sub, any delay, goal kicks, free kicks, especially when sides are winning 1-0, you're penalising you. You're adding, I think normally you can have 3 or 4 minutes on. I'd probably say a time clock.
Definitely. I think that's about it. So, thank you for coming on, mate.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's been great. The pleasure is all ours. And we will see you all for the next episode. Thank you for coming on, mate.
Thank you very much, mate.